This isn't how most days start for me. This is how I imagine my mornings looking when I'm in bed the night before, but as an indie game dev with a full-time job, rarely is this the reality. As much as I intend to get up early, have a good breakfast, work out, clean up, and still be able to sit down and work on my game for a couple hours before work, it's a difficult schedule to keep consistently for a long period of time. But then I see other game devs who have this same schedule, and the progress they seem to be making on their games is so amazing and inspiring, and yet, why does it seem so impossible for me? Well, to answer that, I think we need to explore a better question. Time feels like it's at the root of so many problems sometimes. If I only had more time in the day, I would be able to do so much more. I could make more progress on my game and have it released, or I could be learning new skills that will help me make my next game even better. But the reality is that game dev is something that will always require more time. This is true not only for game dev, but for any hobby that becomes a passion. If you're doing something you love, like game dev, sometimes it feels like no amount of time that you spend on it is sufficient to satisfy your need to keep creating. But this isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's the opposite. It means you found your itch. But if this is my itch, why does it feel like my progress is moving at a snail's pace? When you watch game dev YouTubers or talk to other game devs about their games, it's never going to be a completely accurate representation of what's possible for you, because everyone's schedule is completely different. You don't know the obligations or responsibilities of the person behind the devlog you're watching, but you do know yours. You might have school to study for, or a full-time job, or family obligations, and yet it's so easy to forget all about that when we see the progress that someone else is able to make on their game. This isn't an excuse to be lazy and not make progress, but it is a reminder that we might be giving ourselves unrealistic expectations without realizing it. Instead, it might be helpful to take a look at your schedule and find the gaps. Carve time out to work on your game by creating a schedule that's personalized for you. Everyone's schedule and time available is going to be different, so it's important to be realistic with your schedule as well. When I'm creating a schedule, I also find it more helpful for me to create time-based goals rather than task-based ones. This is because I might not know exactly how long a certain task is going to take. If I were to create the goal, I'm going to finish developing this new feature today, I might not realize that it's actually a 3-day process, and by the end of the day, when the feature still isn't finished, it will feel like I failed. Instead, I'll change the goal to work on my game for 2 hours today. I'll still be designing that same feature, but if I stick to the goal and don't get distracted, by the end of the day, I will have succeeded. And if I keep this consistency and stick to my schedule, that feature will eventually get done. But maybe scheduling isn't the issue for you. You might have the most consistent schedule on the planet, but still feel like the pace you're moving on your game is at a crawl compared to everyone else you see. Just like your schedule, your background is unique. Your experience or inexperience in certain skills will either speed up or slow down your progress, and there are a lot of skills that go into making a game, especially if you're a solo dev. This is another reason why comparing yourself to other game devs is so difficult, because one person might have a background in programming and another in art. It might be tempting to view yourself at a disadvantage just because you don't have the same background as someone else, but don't forget about your own advantages. Just because you don't have a background in programming, for instance, doesn't mean you can't get there. No one wants to be stagnant in their craft where every game that you make is only going to be as good as your last. And if you spend enough intentional time in your craft, your background will improve. If you're starting out with less overall experience than others, it's important to keep in mind that this is only a temporary disadvantage. Progress will probably be slower in the beginning, but over time, you'll start to feel that change as you retain more information as you learn. But until you get there, I think it's helpful to look at the skill of more experienced game devs as an encouragement of what's possible for you, rather than allowing yourself to be discouraged because you're not there right now. Everyone is coming from different backgrounds, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it helps lead to vastly unique games. Speaking of which, sometimes I feel like the most obvious things are the ones that we most often forget, but the game devs that you see online and around you aren't making the same game as you. Because of that, they have a completely different set of features and bugs to work through that aren't directly comparable to your own. But for some reason, it's so tempting to try anyway. And when we do, we forget that we know every obstacle we've faced and every bug we've run into, but we might only ever see the polished result from someone else. This is especially true with videos because the person behind the video has complete freedom to show only what they want to show. Nothing malicious about it, and it can even happen unconsciously. But as a viewer who's all too aware of our own challenges, sometimes we need a little reminder that we don't have the whole picture. We don't know what the game is really like behind the devlog we're watching. We don't know every bug that still isn't fixed that's just off screen, but we do know ours. But if we keep working at it, at some point, that bug will be nothing more than a crossed out item on our checklist. Here's what it all boils down to. Game dev is already difficult enough without us trying to add additional mental challenges. It's always going to be difficult not to compare our work and our progress with others. But at least if we're aware of it, we can correct it. You're not going to be able to have the same schedule as other devs. And that's okay. You're not coming from the same background as other devs. And that's okay. Your game is different from other games. And that's great. This shouldn't be viewed as an excuse not to make progress on your game, but rather, let it empower you to progress even further than you ever thought you could. As indie game devs, we're all facing similar but unique challenges. And I think that's why this community is so amazing. No matter who you are or what background you have or what game you're working on, we're all doing something really difficult. And yet, we can't imagine stopping. If you're watching a devlog, talking to a fellow developer, or playing an indie game, don't forget to leave some encouragement to the dev behind it, because although you don't know their schedule, their background, or every bug they've faced, you know from experience that it's a difficult journey. And that's okay. I hope this video was encouraging, and if it was, feel free to leave a like to help other game devs find this video as well. We also have a great Discord community for this channel, so if you're looking to talk with other game devs, share progress on your games, and even see what other people are working on, we'd love for you to join. The link is in the video description. See you over there, and keep learning.